Good morning, everyone. Very, very pleased to have everybody here. Really excited that I get the chance to welcome you and kick off this really exciting Teach to Reach meeting. I'm excited about a lot. I'm excited about the motion and forward direction that the Teach to Reach work has taken. And I'm also really excited about the speakers that we have today, as I'm sure you will be. Before we get to the agenda, I wanted to provide a little bit of a background on how we got here, because I think it's a fabulous story of foundation colleagues working across programs in a really helpful way and drawing on outside expertise against a really important, impactful goal of ours. In 2012, when we started focusing on routine immunization here at the foundation, we had a small staff and a pretty limited budget with a pretty large scope of choice of how to get involved in routine immunization. And so we had to make some hard choices and focus on just a few areas and a few geographies where we would partner. One of those geographies that we prioritized is well represented here, as you'll see a lot of our colleagues from Nigeria in the room. We chose to focus primarily on supply chain data and financing as the areas in RI where we would emphasize our efforts. But we knew other areas were also important. So we initiated a kind of strategic learning agenda. Let's find out a little bit more about this area and find out whether there's really an impactful way for us to contribute. We embarked on that strategic learning agenda, and we answered the question that yes, there's much more to be done in that area of training and learning. And we really focused basically on embracing training and learning as another part of the RI agenda for a couple of reasons. First of all, we have some global goals, some global vaccine action plan goals for improving coverage and equity, specifically trying to reach the 90-80 mark, the 90% of districts with at least 80% of coverage, and we are not getting there. And we know that in order to get there, you have to have a capable, trained, skilled workforce. And many of the GVAP goals relate to that workforce. And most importantly, we found that there was room for improvement in how we do training. And that's really, in many ways, what brings us here. We know that there's a better way to do training, in part because we have this historical way of doing training, a way of training that has literally not changed since 1974, when an EPI started, right? We have this assumption that technical people, experts, used to be one of these, would be called in to share information in didactic workshops, and we believe that that leads to learning. And we then believe that the people in the room would cascade that learning to other people, and that learning would be better practices and improved coverage. That, in a nutshell, was our proposed theory of action for this. But we know that that doesn't occur, that the practices don't always come from that cascade. And so we, at that point, really chose to reach out and figure out what could we do that would be better. And that's really where we engaged our U.S. program colleagues. We realized that on the same campus that we live on, there's a whole group of people who are dedicated to understanding the science of learning and how people can improve on that. And you're going to hear a lot about that later on today. Jamie Horde from the President's Office in U.S. Program will speak a little bit more about what her team is doing. So we reach out across the campus heart, all the way across to the U.S. programs in the other building, and established the partnership that has led up to today. And just as a reminder, we started this with a summit here in Seattle back in 2015, which is our first sort of exposure of this to many in the immunization world and to many of our immunization partners. And it was incredible the degree of latent demand there was amongst our partners for exactly the kinds of learning, understanding of science of learning, and how to improve teaching and training that came out of this. So much so that it moved to a second summit in Barcelona in 2016, and now brings us to this third meeting here today in Seattle. Just a brief overview of today's agenda, which has a lot of really exciting stuff in it. First of all, my colleague Jamie is going to give us an update from the US program. A little bit of background on learning theory from our colleague Nathan Piankowski. And then a sort of make your own adventure in the period. There'll be different workshops by different leaders. Pick the one that works best for you. And then what says 20 by 20s, you're going to get exposed to a different way of presentation altogether. The style of presentation is called Pecha Kucha. It's a really fun way to try and present information. I hope you'll really enjoy it. I think you're going to see some really great Pecha Kuchas. So, there's a lot really to be excited about here. The collaboration across teams and programs that don't always happen, the mix of international expertise and partners that we have in the room. But before we go too much further, I do have to say a few thanks, because we don't get to a place like this without a team of committed and visionary type people working together. I want to thank our speakers who bring so much expertise and background to this. I want to thank our colleagues from Linksbridge and Bull City Learning, who really helped in organizing and structuring all this, mad vision into something that people can really get a hold of. I want to thank a few colleagues in U.S. programs who've really, really stretched out for us. Raheem, Jamie, and Jim, thank you so much for being a partner to the global teams. And for my team, V.O. Mitchell, who saw the need for this, along with Molly and Abrazizi a couple years ago, and really special hand to Amanda Shortell, who's done a tremendous job pushing this forward. So thank you to all of you.